Hey everyone, today we're going to be looking at all of the character connections in Dead by Daylight. Ever wondered how all of the various characters in the game actually connect to one another? There's obviously the clear connections like between Jeff and the Legion, or ones between Yunjin and the Trickster for example. All ones people are pretty familiar with, but what's this? Who's Hank Maddox? And Vigo's here too, and Surid Rivera, and Kobe Dax, and Bahan Singh? Who are these people? Well, today we're going to dive into just that, and I'm going to try and explain all of the character connections there are in the game across this huge map I made. This huge map I made detailing all the connections I could think of. And even with this finished, and as you're looking at it now, there are definitely still additions to be made. This is what I could just think of, sort of all in one go, but I think there is still more to add. But for now, this is where we're at, and so this is where we're going to go from. Where do we start? I'm not too sure, but the place I think we should start is with the individual licenses. So whilst this does look a bit chaotic, there is some order. If you zoom into certain parts of this map, you can see the different licenses. For example, if you zoom in down here, we can see the Resident Evil section, and it's a bit overlapping with the Yamaokas and Greenville, but it's there. And at the center of this is actually Wesker. He's the character I would say that actually connects most of the other characters, because there's lots of characters in DBD from Resident Evil that don't actually connect directly to one another. For example, Leon has never really met Chris before this. He's also not met Jill. Maybe he met Chris, but he definitely didn't meet Jill. Then there's characters like Birkin, who only Leon really encounters, and then Hunk only really interacts with Birkin because he's tasked to take the G-Virus from him. So there's lots of these connections that all bind the characters together, and even then they branch out to original characters like with Fang, because she's actually a cosplayer and she cosplays as Jill, so they have that connection too. And that's what I'm doing with all these connections. It's not just them knowing one another, it's also connections where one can know the other, and all of it becomes this sort of intricate winding together map. Both Wesker and Nemesis are both worked under umbrellas. They have a sort of small connection there. Jill then knew about Nemesis because it chased her throughout Raccoon City. Jill and Chris were obviously friends but also partners. Jill and Rebecca and Chris were all STARS members and so co-workers. Chris then connects to Claire as siblings. Claire and Leon met in Raccoon City and there's sort of a romantic spark between them. And same goes for Ada, a similar deal. They both met in Raccoon City and there's a similar feeling there. Then both Ada and Wesker also have a connection because Wesker employed Ada at some point. Then Wesker also connects to Birkin as they were co-workers in Raccoon City, or for Umbrella, sorry, and they created the T and G virus. Then Hunk was trying to extract the G virus from Birkin. We also connect out to characters like Sheva, because of course Sheva was hunting down Wesker, and she was also partners with Chris. So all of it becomes this nice web of connections, and I think that's probably the best way to, and we've also got Carlos, sorry, up here as well, who connects to Jill, and he should also have a little connection to Nemesis. I've not quite added there. But there you go, and that's sort of how it goes. This is how the idea of this connection sprawl is set out. Admittedly, it is a bit confusing in its current iteration because it is quite crazy, and I do want to try and clean it up. It was actually quite clean at the very start, but it got messier and messier as it went on. Let's go down now to the Saw area. This is quite a small area because the Saw chapter doesn't really connect outside to the wider DBD universe necessarily. The branching connection we have is actually from the entity. Now the entity's a bit of a tough one because obviously it connects to just about everything, which is why I've added a tag in that says all survivors and killers, and then drawn a connection that says it connects to everyone, because obviously the map would look insanely crazy if the entity was literally connecting to every single character. Same goes for the observer over here. But one key connection that branches the entity and Jigsaw is that the entity utilizes Jigsaw's puppet form, Billy the Puppet, to manipulate Amanda. So I thought that was an important connection to draw sort of separately. And then Jigsaw obviously connects to Amanda. Amanda connects to Tap as she was interviewed by him, but also investigated by him. Tap then investigates Jigsaw, and so we get this nice round Saw circle over here. Also, while we're down here, we also have Alan Wake and his universe. And again, he has this small branching theory I made to the entity as well, because there is a theory, which is indicated by this dotted line. This this is for theories or popular headcanons that I'm going to include in this sort of map, because I think it's a bit more fun if we do it that way. So that connects Alan, and then Alan connects to the other two characters of Alan Wake, which are Rose and Saga. Let's now move on to the top right corner. Now this corner has a few more license connections, but also just some sort of smaller connections between licenses as well, or characters. For example, Huntress doesn't really connect to anyone, from the best of my memory at least, but she does connect to her 3 different legendary skins, which are all fog creations. These are creations that happen in the fog, and then of course Werark is her true form. So there's this nice just back and forth between these 3 different skins. We then have Pinhead and Chatterer, who of course were co-workers, but they don't really connect beyond their universe. We have someone like Bill, who's completely standalone. Same goes for Bubba. Up here we have the Silent Hill area, with Cheryl or Heather at the center. She's of course the daughter of Harry Mason, and Sybil helped Harry Mason find his daughter, Cheryl, when she was young. Then we have Alessa down here, who's connected to Cheryl, who's the reincarnation of Alessa. Then Silent Hill as a place connects both Pyramid Head and also James Sunderland. James, of course, being the father/creator, as I've written there, of Pyramid Head. And then James connects to Maria because Maria is created by James as sort of this like stand-in for his wife and the guilt he feels. Lisa also connects to Alessa, as Lisa cared for Alessa when she was in Silent Hill. Over here we have the Castlevania area, where we have Dracula at the center, with his ongoing rivalry between him and the Belmonts. We have Alucard down here, who's of course his son, and then we have Soma Cruz, who I'm a little confused on this, but apparently he contains Dracula's soul, so that's a thing. Over here we have both Hux and Gabriel, and they're both connected through their visit to Devaka and actually encountering each other directly. We have the Ghoul or Ken Kaneki and Rise Kamishiro, who of course are both quite deeply connected. She's sort of inside of him after she dies and he takes on her powers, so yeah, it's a whole thing. Moving to the side here, we have Freddy and Quentin. Now these two of course are just directly connected. They encountered directly. They've known each other for most of their lives actually. Moving down a little bit, we have the Stranger Things area, and this also slightly links to Coldwind Farm, which is, it's getting a little bit crazy. There's this tag up here that says Max and Haddie investigate Coldwind Farm. That's probably a bit confusing for now, but I'll try and get to it and explain the best I can. But for now we have Stranger Things down here. So we have this sort of love triangle between Jonathan, Nancy, and Steve. They have the sort of friends, dating, friends, and ex-partners, and they all connect to Demogorgon because they all have seen a Demogorgon. This might not be the Demogorgon they fought, but regardless, they all connect to a Demogorgon of some kind. Then Jonathan connects to Myers. I'm pretty sure he has a Halloween poster in his room, or they mention it at some point. I think so. Could be wrong on that. And then both Myers and Laurie are obviously connected because Laurie survived Myers on Halloween night. And then I've also put this theory connection here about them being siblings in another universe. This isn't canon to DBD, even though people mention this one a lot, but I thought I'd include it regardless. Up here we have sort of the it's a bit of a crazy connection here. We have both Legion and Jeff connecting, but then Legion also connect to Vecna because of them playing D&D. Same thing with Stranger Things. They know of a Vecna from D&D, and from their own Vecna they then know of this Vecna. Then Vecna also connects to both Astri and Bema, who both set out to kill or stop Vecna. Then Legion also connects to Billy because in the comics they watch films made about Billy and the Coldwind Massacre. So yeah, they watch movies about this in the future on from when it happened, I suppose. And then obviously Billy is an inhabitant of Coldwind Farm. That's the area. We'll maybe branch over there in a little bit. Also down here we have some more standalone characters who don't really connect to anyone. Up here we have both Sadako and Yuichi. Sadako and Yuichi obviously connect because Sadako actually killed Yuichi's parents and also later haunts him throughout his life and leads him to him entering the realm. Yuichi is taken on a place called the Flannan Isles, or at least it seems like it, and this connects to some lore characters called the Lighthouse Keepers, who also disappear on the Flannan Isles. And interestingly, these characters connect to Michaela, who writes about the Lighthouse Keepers, and she knows the story about them disappearing. So interestingly, Michaela has a connection to both Sadako and on Yuichi, which I think is quite cool. Okay, I think we'll go up here next. then we'll dive into the center and I'll try and explain and decode this mess of connections. So we have Yunjin, of course, and Trickster are both connected. Yunjin was Ji-woon's producer at both No Spin and then as a solo act. Then Adam also knows Trickster, or has actually seen him directly, because he went to visit one of his concerts with his students. Then Trickster has sort of a theory connection to Skull Merchant, because there's this really good theory that Trickster's golden mask he wears in his Tome outfit, it shares a lot of similarities to Skull Merchant's masks, being very gold and flashy, but also having a skull design to it. So I really like that theory. I thought I'd whack that in there. Then of course, Skull Merchant connects to both Talita and Renato, the siblings, directly, because she hunts them down in the woods outside of, I think, Rio. Over here we have sort of an alien area that I've marked just with alien. That's just to sort of remind me. I'll probably get rid of that because it's not like a location that things are connecting to. And at the center of this one is the Xenomorph, which I've used a bit more freely in this case because I'm using it more so as a Xenomorph rather than the Xenomorph. So maybe I can separate those, because the Xenomorph connects to the Xenomorph Queen as mother and child. The Xenomorph also connects to Rain Carradine up here, as Rain encounters a Xenomorph. Again, sort of why I need to maybe separate those. Xenomorph connects to Grid, as they're both Xenomorphs. Xenomorph connects to Ripley, as they encounter one another on the Nostromo, with Ripley surviving it. The Xenomorph clone then is connected by both Ripley and Xenomorph, with it having shared DNA. Okay, so I think that clears up the outer parts now, all of these sort of like straggler areas on the side here. And now I think we can dive directly into the chaos of the middle, but I'm not too sure where to start. I think the best place to start is with the markers I've made, so maybe we'll dive into Greenville first. Greenville, and actually around Crotus Prenn, are quite big elements, and then also Tome Haddie has a lot of branches as well as the Black Vale. These are like the key points you'll see on this map here of where all of these lines are sort of intersecting. So we're down in Greenville now, and we have the core connection here of both Michaela and Sable, and they connect through being best friends. Although this is a little contested in the lore because of the way it's set up and written, this is canonically their relationship. So we have some direct connections to these characters first, with Michaela being roommates with Julian, who is taken during Michaela's lore by the entity, or at least seemingly. He disappears in their shared apartment together. We have a character down here named Lucian, who's actually fictional, but because DBD works in the way that fictional things are also real, I've decided to include him as well, and he's called Lucian, and he's a character set in sort of the medieval times. Then, interestingly, Michaela also knows Yui, but we'll get into that a bit later, and then she also has a connection to Trapper, who we'll get into a bit later. But her connection to Trapper is that she seemingly dreams about Trapper when she's having dreams about the entity's realm and she's being hunted by the entity, which is why it's got this dotted line. It's a little hard to see due to the shortness of the line. Over on Sable's side, she has the direct connection to Unknown because she knew about it and she was trying to find out more. Unknown then connects to Olivia. Olivia was the character who actually is the center of Unknown's lore and investigates it to try and find out what it really is. And she later tries to connect both Unknown and the entity in one place, which she sort of succeeds with. Sable then also connects down to Arella. Arella knows about Sable and she listened to Sable's show. Arella then connects to characters Cliff Barra and Alex Damaro, who were both partners, and depending on the universe, sometimes they're filmmakers, sometimes Cliff is an author. It sort of varies by universe. Yeah, so sometimes it's a book, sometimes they're filmmakers. It sort of goes back and forth, I think. Or one is the other. I think maybe Cliff is a writer, Alex is the filmmaker. It's something like that. And then Michaela also connects down to Alex and Cliff because she writes a story about them in a lore passage named Deja Vuism. There's another fictional character down here named Ulla, who Michaela writes about again, and it's this sort of scary pumpkin story that Michaela creates, and these killer pumpkins are stopped by good witches. That's what that is. Okay, let's first branch down the Yui route from Michaela. So Michaela knows of Yui being in the realm, and she actually writes a story about Yui, the lighthouse keepers, and also I think it's Romulus of Rome, as in the founder of Rome, being in the realm and surviving the trials. It's this really strange but quite interesting pairing. So then Yui obviously connects to Oni. They both meet when she first enters the fog, which I'm counting as sort of because obviously these are all pre-realm connections, otherwise, again, like everyone connects. I count this sort of as pre-realm or pre-trial, because they're not quite in the trials yet when they have that first initial face-off, so I'm counting this as a separate meeting. Oni then, of course, connects to Spirit. Rin is Kazan's great ×5 granddaughter. I think it's about that much, or it might be ×3. It's a long way off, basically. Then Oni also has the family of Akito Yamaoka, who's his son, and also Renjiro, who's his father and who he kills. We have other connections here, like the Minotaur and also the Armored Titan, who connect to Oni as well, and they're marked just as fog creation, a bit like with Huntress's skins. We then have a connection up here to Green and Gold Oni, you might be a bit confused by. This is an alternate universe Oni, who connects to a big lore character, as you can see with all these arrows, called Saku Nakano, also known as the Redcrane. Actually, let me add that in now. Forgot to add in her little title, the Redcrane. Okay, the Redcrane. Moving up in this direction, Michaela's connection to Trapper is that she seemingly dreams about him. This isn't confirmed, which again is why there's a dotted line, but it does seem to be Trapper, because he's typically the character connected with the basement as well, and also the way he describes this character in the basement very much seems to be like Trapper. Trapper then connects to Naughty Bear as a fog creation. He also connects to his father, Archie McMillan. He also somewhat connects to Ghostface, or, well, not, Trapper doesn't connect to him, but Ghostface connects to Trapper, as we can see with the direction of the arrow. And this is down to a Ghostface seemingly knowing about Trapper, and actually having an article about the Miner, which is presumably about Trapper. So Ghostface seemingly idolizes and knows about Trapper. There's also a theory that Ghostface connects to Azarov, or a Azarov. He's technically got a first mysterious name. I don't know, what could it be? But there's a supposed connection due to a certificate appearing in Azarov's resting place, and also, but it also it breaks his theory a little bit, but the certificate appears on a lot of maps, but it most prominently appears in Azarov's resting place, and people think on the certificate it says like Employee of the Month, and it looks like a name underneath that says Danny Johnson, which is Ghostface's name. So there's this theory, which is why there's a dotted line, that Ghostface worked for Azarov, which would then technically connect Ghostface to the Wraith, or Philippa Jomo, because Wraith did, of course, directly work for Azarov. He should directly connect them. Then Wraith connects out to characters such as Fernanya, who cared for Philip as a child, and then also Toby and Tina, who are two people who seem to enter Azarov's resting place, seemingly outside of the realm, like they visit the abandoned wrecker's yard, and Wraith appears and kills them and drags them into the realm. So that's nice of him, isn't it? Up here, we have another dotted line where Wraith connects to Nurse, and Wraith has this connection because originally in canon, these two had a romantic relationship of some kind. It was never really expanded on what that was, but it was confirmed they had something between them. This has since been confirmed no longer canon, so now it's a dotted line, so I just wrote they broke up on there. Okay, now let's move up to the Crotus Prenn Asylum area. Interestingly, Crotus Prenn actually links quite a few characters, sort of indirectly, but it still links them. It of course connects Nurse, who worked there directly. It also connects Nia, who was dared to tag and spray Crotus Prenn, and was ultimately taken by the entity from this location. Nia then connects out into a world called Terra Primus through this alternate version of herself called Nina. This is a dotted line, as this isn't confirmed it's her, but these names are very similar and they both reside in Full City, so I'm pretty sure Nina is meant to be an alternate version of Nia. It also connects out to a character named Sean Dint, who is a character who visits Crotus Prenn and gets attacked by the Oni, or an Oni, which is presumably this green and gold Oni, this alternate universe Oni, that also hunts down Saku. Going over to the Nurse side of things, she also connects to her husband, Andrew Smithson. And now we get to the area with Tome's Haddie. But before we do that, maybe we look at our Haddie first, because you can see there's a lot of arrows. This is a lot of the sort of a deep lore going on here. If we look down here, we have our Haddie, who actually doesn't have too many connections, granted. She connects to Dredge as she investigates the Garden of Joy and the massacre that occurred there. Dredge also connects to Otto Stamper, who's a character who ran the Garden of Joy and created the Dredge, technically. And Otto Stamper worked for the Black Vale through a organization known known as OSM, or the Office of Strategic Magic, which appears to be an alternate version of the OSS or the OSO, which are both alternate versions of one another. So there's an OSS, there's an OSO, there's also an OSM, you know, just to keep it simple. Otto Stamper also connects out to a Doctor, being sort of his mentor and the person who hires Doctor to work at Larry's. Doctor connects out to Luxie. He also connects to Jonah. Jonah knew who Doctor was due to him working at the CIA. Jonah connects up to Artist, they were both taken from the same place, and Jonah also knew about what happened to Artist seemingly and some sort of massacre that occurred. We also have a bit of a web over by Artist. We have the Fog creation, or her seemingly child, the Jabberwock. We also have her father and her mother. Her mother has a connection out to the Black Vale, as the Black Vale kidnapped her mother, as she has similar powers to Haddie, and Haddie has powers where she's able to see into overlaps. Then we also have Matthias Mora over here, who was her brother who died, and Kamina's father also seemingly worked for the Black Vale, so that's nice. Moving up here, we also have this connection to Adiris, who is theorized to have been the creator of the Black Vale, with her sort of devoted religion to the entity seeming to be a possible spark for its origin, which is quite interesting. And she also connects to Haban, which is her mentor. Going back down to Haddie, Haddie connects out to Jordan Roy, her adoptive brother, or their adoptive sibling. She gets adopted by his family. She's also the alternate version of Haley Core, and there's also a Jaden Roy, who is an alternate version of Jordan. Sorry, there's some birds flying outside. Haley is also friends with someone named Grace, who's this character down here. And then Haddie also connects to Haddie from the Tomes, Haddie Core from the Tomes up here, who's again, same person from alternate universes. We have a brief connection if we go back to the sort of Black Veil area to the twins, because obviously twins were hunted by the Black Veil. Their mother, Madeline Desai, was killed by the Black Veil, and also Victor was killed by a Black Veil member, and so twins is sort of here too. Elodie also connects to the Black Veil as she investigated them and she got stabbed by one of its members in Paris. The OSS and the OSO, as I mentioned, are sort of these, seem to be branches of the Black Veil as they infiltrate the government and its organizations. And then of course Tori was a Black Veil member, so she's also directly connected to the Black Veil there too. And she's tasked with killing Jordan Roy, which is why she also has this connection down here. Interestingly, going back as well, I forgot about this connection. Otto Stamper, the Dredge's creator and Doctor's mentor, also connects to Pauline, who's a relative of his, presumably, and she hires Nicolas Cage. So weirdly, Nicolas Cage connects to actually like a lot of important lore characters, because Pauline hires him to play the Blight in a Descend Beyond movie. So Nicolas also connects to Blight up here, which is interesting. But he also connects down to Chucky, because Chucky knows who he is in the realm, and he also knows who Ash is. And then we have the small one here with Chucky and Tiffany. It's getting a bit, I know it's getting a bit crazy. I'm trying to hold it together, right? I really am. Then where should we go? We should probably go to Tome Haddie now. So over here we have Tome Haddie, and this is just a mess. I know it's a mess. It needs to be cleaned up. I understand. He has Jordan Roy, who's also from the Tomes. That's his Tome version, and he disappears in the Tomes. He's I think he's taken into the realm, or he dies. I think he gets taken into the realm, I'm pretty sure. Haddie works with someone named Max Holt, who interestingly knows of Vittorio up here, because he sees a painting of him when they visit Coldwind Farm. It's getting crazy, I know. Vittorio connects to Knight, and then Knight obviously connects to like his guards as well. Haddie connects to various creatures such as Evil Eyes, which is this like creature of like 1,000 red eyes she finds in a cave. It's pretty crazy. She also connects to Stefan Roy, which is Jordan's uncle, and also her uncle as she gets adopted. She also connects to someone named Surin Rivera, and Surin saves Haddie from an assassination, presumably from some sort of Black Veil organization. And Surin was a character that was able to save her because he was released from a sort of an institution by someone named Kobe Dax, who's this sort of very rich guy. He also releases someone named Candice from an institution. And Candice and Coddy up here are two people who encounter a vampire in an old mine from I think the Mad Madoc gang or something it's called. It's really crazy anyway. And they kill a vampire. Anyway, there's a lot of crazy connections. Haddie connects to a lot of people. Tome Haddie. She connects to people in the realm as well, as we'll see as we move on to the left side. There's a lot of connections. Up here we have some standalone lore stories, which to the best of my knowledge don't connect to anyone else. So we have these characters Samara Dwenless and Kirsty Hartz, who both connect through Samara murdering Kirsty because she thinks she's a vampire. It's like the standalone vampire story. We have these characters of Laurie and Ian, who are on sort of this hike or trek, and Ian is planning on proposing to Laurie, but then they come across these strange rabbits that attack and kill them, and think it's Ian who is dragged into a fog as he tries to ask Laurie to marry him. So that's pretty messed up. There's a character named Constable Duncan J. Smith who sees these ghost dogs and is eventually killed by them with his sort of curse of seeing these dogs being passed on to someone else. Down here we have, interestingly, Hag, David, and Meg. There's a character named Grace Sherwood, Derek, and Mel, and all these people are part of a group who are in the Void at the moment, who are following Mahan Singh, who is Haddie's uncle. And all of these people are seemingly alternate versions of characters we know. For example, Meg being Meg, Derek being David, and Grace Sherwood being Lisa Sherwood. This isn't confirmed, so they all have dotted lines. It's a bit hard to see beneath the sort of the text plate, but that's what they are, dotted lines. And Mahan's group is quite large. It also contains a character named Dwayne, who's seemingly an alternate version of Dwight, and there's also seemingly an alternate version of Claudette named Claudine. And I think that's all of the characters for now. We have some more standalone characters here. I'm sure I can connect these two in some way, both Ace and Jane. I believe in Jane's new tome that's just coming out, he does connect to more characters, so she'll definitely have some connections. Moving over to a story named Terra Arachna, which centers around the Hellback spiders. In this story, there's this strange spider outbreak in Full City, which is Nia's hometown, or in this case, it's Nina, which is why I presume Nia is the same as Nina, because it both occurs in Full City, which is the hometown of both Nia and Nurse. And Nina is friends with characters Elias and Elan, which is interesting, as both Elias and Elan actually, interestingly, connect all the way back to Sable, because Sable talks to, I think, their sister, but this is from a different universe, Elias and Elan. And they also have a mother called Sabrina Malkas. They're friends with people named Casey, Ariella, and Olivia. Olivia, you may sound familiar. Olivia, again, is the character who investigates Unknown, presumably in another universe, considering this is Terra Arachna. But they do sort of vaguely connect. Also connected to Terra Arachna and the Hellback Spiders is a character named Dr. Morell, who is presumably Claudette Morell, but sort of seemingly aged up and in a more sort of senior role. And in this universe, she's working on a toxin to kill the spiders. And she has this sort of mini team together. And one of the people working for her and her team is Dwight, who makes them pizza. So this is Hellback Dwight here, who works with or for Dr. Morell. Dwight also has some connections. He has another alternate version of himself who's an emperor, and he sort of rules over this kingdom that's really strange and weird. He also has a relative named Elaine Fairfield, who is part of this other big central point named the House of Arkham. And the House of Arkham is a large group of characters, many of which are people looking for relatives that have gone missing and have been taken by the entity. So we have connections out to various characters such as Yasmin Kassir, who's a relative of Zarina, who connects then up to Deathslinger. We have Jake's parents, who connect to the House of Arkham. We have various other characters like James Rich or Donald, who all connect too. We have Arma Kimura, who connects to Yui Kimura. So we have lots of these characters that all connect. We also have Saku once again connecting, as the House of Arkham read about Saku in the Chamber of Blood. They also read about the Observer down here, as they find the Observer's tower after he leaves to go to the Void. Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. Okay, now I guess we'll move on to Saku. So Saku is this lore character, and she has a clan named the Red Crown Clan, who is sort of rivals with this society named the Black Serpent Society, and this is presumably a branch of the Black Vale as well. And the Black Serpent Society seems to be sort of aided by the Green and Gold Oni that I mentioned earlier, and the Green and Gold Oni is responsible for killing much of Saku's Red Crown Clan. Saku then goes on sort of a path of revenge, and she vows to kill all of the Black Serpent Society and the Green and Gold Oni, but unfortunately she fails a few times because whenever she encounters this Oni, it's always in an overlap, and so when she kills it, she's technically in the realm, and so it just comes back because you can't really die in the realm. So she enters the fog as the last remaining member of the Red Crown Clan, and she aims to kill all of the Black Serpent Society. It's a bit of a tall order, but then she's in the realm for, I think she's in there for like thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. She's in there a very long time, and she manages to kill a lot of people, but she also goes quite dead inside and becomes sort of a bit on edge by what she's done, I think, over the years. She encounters various horrors such as the ogre baby, or the red-eyed cannibals, or the undead samurai army, or the large serpent, vampires. She fights lots of various things. She meets Mahon as well, and they fight a creature named the Horror together. She's also friends with Maurice, which you may think like, what, Maurice? Yes, Maurice is also another central point for connections. For one, Maurice is of course owned by the clown, and the clown has a little connection here to Houndmaster as well, because of the Mori line she has about giving fingers to a pal, which is theorized to be Houndmaster. Maurice also has oh god, I feel like I'm going crazy, I don't know. Maurice also had a horse friend named Betty. He was also owned previously by a man named Mr. Shelby, who he tried, but by the way, sorry, I need to preface this. Maurice has some sort of psychic power where he's able to enter the minds of people and speak to them. Just to let you know. So he does this to Mr. Shelby to try and get him to sell him to someone else because Mr. Shelby's very abusive. Another owner he has is Farmer Joe, who's also very abusive. And Maurice makes friends with some puppies when he escapes Farmer Joe's farm, and he names one of them Trouble because they come across an overlap whilst they're sort of traversing some hills or something. And then Maurice also has this branching connection all the way up here, which goes to the Dredge, because obviously at one point Dredge consumed Maurice, which is what sort of caused Saku to go and save him in the first place. But that's pretty interesting, isn't it? And I think that just about does it. I think obviously we haven't touched on literally everything, but I've touched on all the key main points I can think of. So that's the huge map I've made. I will be making this available to everyone. I'll be leaving some links down in the description you can check out, so you can come look at this for yourself. It's probably a lot easier than me trying to zoom in various parts and explain it to you bit by bit. I think that's a little bit, a bit of a tall order, I think, to do that. So I think you'll find it a lot easier if you can just look through it yourself. Regardless, I do hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.